Hey, it's me. It's animated me. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and it's time for another episode of Completed It. Movie reviews, pop culture, celebrity guests, and all that good stuff. Oh, and my good friend over there, Sasha Alari, is my co-host. Hey, Satch, hit the titles, brother. Welcome, everybody, back to another, yes, I say it all the time, another episode of Completed It. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and I am joined today by, he's becoming a very regular movie reviewer with us. In my top left there, you can see him chomping away on his nuts. That is not a metaphor. Mr. Jonathan Noakes, how are you, sir?
All right, pal. How was going?
Oh, yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm good. I'm good. It's been a bit of a long old day at work for me and you, mate, but we're
Yeah,
here to talk
definitely. Yeah.
movies. We're here to talk about the movie Warfare. Now, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, who I talk mainly about the NFL to and spend a lot of my life traveling to Washington, D.C. and back, is the guy you can see at the bottom of our screen, but he is also served our country tremendously proudly. He was part of the RAF, been out in Iraq, been to Afghanistan. So none other better person really to get on this show than one of my best buddies, Mr. Scott Hartley. Scott, how are you, bro?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And nice to meet you, John. Thank you.
You too.
No, it's good to sit down and chat to you. Obviously, I know a lot about your military background, Scotty, and we all joke we call him Uncle Albert in our little friend circle. But he has got stories that will literally make your toes curl. And you know, when you hear it from the horse's mouth, you do realise what a great job, like people like the RAF and everything does, our military does. So we're tremendously proud of them. But this is based on the movie that we all seen recently, the movie Warfare. Warfare is an hour and 35 minutes long, which will be very critical in a minute, and we'll say why. It grossed $29 million worldwide, including 25.1 million in the US and Canada alone, 4.1 million in other territories, and only had a budget of 20 million. And a little fact about this movie, a lot of it was filmed on an iPhone. There's a little
Wow.
fact, yeah, a little fact there that you may not know. Scotty, let's come to you first, my friend. Obviously, you were in the RAF. This movie basically set around a bunch of guys, American Navy SEALs.
Mhm.
Basically they're on a surveillance mission that turns into them surviving and getting out of a two up, two down house, basically. In the middle of I think it's Iraq it's set if I
It is
remember
Iraq.
correctly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
set in Ramadi. Yeah.
yeah, so set in Ramadi, Iraq, it's basically they're on a surveillance mission. You know, they're looking for basically for them stopping themselves getting shot at. They're seeing who's around, what's happening. They're on a surveillance mission that turns south very quickly, and over the course of an hour and 35 minutes. This is why I made the point at the start of the show. This film is set in real time. So this must have been the longest hour and 35 minutes of these guys' lives. It's basically them trying to survive, trying to get out, and trying to stay alive. That's the gist of it. That's the me giving you the basic of basics, but so much else goes on to this movie. It's all based on true facts. The movie was told by the gentlemen themselves. So it wasn't like Hollywood went, right, we're going to write a script for this movie. It was tweaked a little bit for Hollywood. Of course, it is. Every true story always is. But for everything I've read about this movie, I've watched a documentary on it as well since it's finished. And for those that have seen the movie, there's like a post credit where when you see the guys that were actually there, the real life guys, meeting the actors and actresses, etc., etc. This was basically it was filmed over 5 weeks as well, guys. It was filmed over 5 weeks in Iraq, and some of it was set in London as well. I think they've done some shooting at Legion Studios, which is not too far from me and Mr. Noakes. Scotty, you've served in the RAF, my friend. That's why I waited. We could have done this a couple of weeks ago, but you've been jet setting around the world, being famous, being the international fan of the year for the Washington, our beloved Washington Commanders. All joking aside, Scott, how true to life in the military was this film? Because everyone I've spoke to and every review I've read, say you're probably not going to. Band of Brothers has been compared to this.
Yeah.
Band of Brothers for me was, and I've spoke to you about this when we've been on holiday together, and we've been sitting on a plane for countless hours, and you told me that's probably as true to life as you're going to get. The movie Warfare, Scotty, how close was it to what you know in the military?
Extremely close, very, very close, especially from my end. So I'm a combat medic by trade, is what I did. I saw the other end of things like quite poor leg injuries that you saw on there when they're getting medevaced out. My role was to see the other side of it at the hospital side. But the little details that they got right, I would say it's probably 95% there.
Wow.
Very, 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 very close. From the point of fact of the Iraqi housing was spot on. That is exactly what an Iraqi shantytown house should look like in Ramadi. Weirdly enough, I actually remember this as an actual as it truly happened. I was in Iraq at the time this happened.
Wow.
So yeah. So I was in southern
This
Iraq
movie
in
must have,
Basra.
pardon the pun, this movie must have blown your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it starts off with nothing. You just don't understand why it's even started. And they're watching an Eric Prydz video, and it's like, oh, okay, this is a bit interesting. And then it's boom straight into it, and you're like, oh, okay. You don't hear any background. You don't get anything about the guys, where they're from, none of that. And obviously the movie lets you play it out. But yeah, they were up at Bagram, and Ramadi is where the actual pit happened. So probably about 2.5 hours north of where I was. But we remember it coming through because it was quite a big event, and we had to give medics from our base had to fly up to Bagram to try and treat these lads. So yeah, it was a bit of a all hands to the pump for a lot of the time. I didn't go, obviously. I was stationed where I was, but I do remember these events unfolding as true as it was. It was little things for me that were on there that I looked at and I thought that is absolutely spot on. Things like tourniquets, where he couldn't get the tourniquet round,
Hmm.
and he had to put like, oh, it's a black tourniquet. It's called a Cat One tourniquet, is what they actually call it. And what you do is, as the buckle is on there, you push it through the buckle, and there's a twist. So you've got a pen, almost like what looks like a top of a pen, and you twist the pen 3 times round, and that's what tightens the tourniquet. And he couldn't get the clip in. So what people were actually doing in real life in Afghan and Iraq were they were tying tourniquets around themselves already
Oh,
in case it got blasted. So then it was easier to tighten them up. So that was what we try to do
I
because
couldn't
you
even
you
do any. I
literally
couldn't tie a knot in the scouts,
because you
Scotty.
literally couldn't get the buckles through, and it's absolutely true. You couldn't get the buckles through. So watching that on a film, I was like, Jesus, this is like absolutely as true
Mm.
as it can get.
Is
Even
that
from
because they
things,
got it from the guys that were actually there, Scott? Is
yeah,
that why you
yeah,
think this movie
absolutely.
worked really well?
100%. That is exactly how they got it. Even from little things like when they're getting into getting the busing, debussing out into the vehicles, the armored vehicles at the end, it's the ting of the shots that are coming off the
In
vehicles.
it.
Little things like that were bang on. That is exactly how it would be. Everything from the what the insurgents were wearing to what Navy SEALs would be wearing. Uniform was spot on. Nothing different to what I would have expected at all. I mean, I would say it was probably 95% there, bang on with what they would do. But yeah, you wouldn't be bashing houses down with sledgehammers though. That's one bit that was a little bit taken out of context, I would say.
Yeah, dancing in the street before it started as well. I can't imagine many of you boys doing that, Scott. I know you military guys are crazy, but not they were giving it the
We're
old.
not Navy SEAL crazy though,
Yeah,
Andy. That's for
exactly.
sure.
John, when you hear someone like Scotty talk, does the movie now resonate even more? Because, like you say, I went and saw it on my own, and I said to you as soon as I got into work, I think I texted you as soon as I come out.
Yeah.
I was like, John, you've got to go and see this movie, and when we review it, I've got the perfect guy that I don't care how long we have to wait because I knew you were busy, Scott. We're waiting for him because I'm pretty sure he is going to tell us things about this movie that will make this stand out even more. John, first of all, what did you make of the movie? And does it now, when you hear what Scott says, do you think, Jesus, it hits home even more?
Yeah, it's just like when like you're reading a book or an autobiography of a famous person, you can picture yourself like being John Malkovich, being in that type of situation, and listening just now, it kind of makes it even more real. When I was watching it, I was kind of like that. I mean, I can't believe what these people went through. It's just I've not been as glued to the cinema screen in a while. It was really really good.
Yeah,
and you
I'm
know,
gonna go and see it
it
again.
hit
I saw it in
it hit
IMAX,
me,
and
close to heart. You know,
yeah, it does. When you watch these kind of like the true life movies, and some of them you think, okay, no, they've Hollywooded this up like big time. This one, Scott, like you say, was pretty much. And does it help, Scott, that it was set in real time? So for them, from the moment that the Iraqis and everything tried to kill them, basically, it took them an hour and 35. Like the movie's an hour and 35 minutes. There's probably 10 minutes at the start where they're dicking around watching you know, watching the girls dance on the music video. So we'll say an hour and 20 minutes of this movie is them literally getting shot at,
Surviving. Yeah.
literally losing their leg. That put the guy that lost his legs at the end of the film, they meet the guys that were pretty much there. And they give a spiel up and that to me was fascinating because I'm thinking during the movie, I'm like, this guy's done. There's a guy in the movie. For those that haven't seen it, we are doing spoilers in this one. It's been out quite a while now, so hopefully, there's a gentleman in the movie who plays a part, and his legs are completely shot to pieces. When they're doing the
The morphine
the
pens. Yeah,
morphine,
morphine
Scotty,
pens.
how true? Because they were literally like they give him
Bang
one.
on.
And then he was just like, "I need another morphine. I need another
No,
morphine." Talk us through
15
that
minutes.
process when you're
So
out there.
when
Is
you,
that was that as true to
yeah,
life
yeah,
as it gets?
absolutely. It's always in a pouch on your right hand side, which was bang on. They always get three, so each person gets three when they're going on when they're going out in the field. You always go out, so we would obviously have more in a hospital situation, but when you go out, yes, you get three issued to you. They are auto injector pens, so stabbing yourself was commonplace.
Yeah, the guy that done it, he stabbed
Yeah,
himself in the leg.
every time, like he jabbed himself in the thumb when he was trying to
Hmm.
jab it in. So that does happen, and I've seen it happen to trained doctors.
Wow.
In real life, it always happens because they're quite cumbersome. So the cap on them are really difficult to twist off.
Hmm.
So when you're twisting the cap off, it can sometimes break in your hand and you get stabbed that way. Or you get the cap off and you're like rushing because you're panicking and you jab it into a leg or into an arm and suddenly, oh shit, I've done it the wrong way around, which does happen all the
Yeah, in that
time.
situation, you're not thinking, I know you're
And
trained for this kind of thing, but your head
yeah,
must
yeah, oh,
scramble.
absolutely. And the fact that he had the pouch on the right hand side when you looked at it, and he's like, I've got more, I've got more, and it's like, yeah. So you get one every 15 minutes is
You
the
can't bang all three in
no,
straight away.
not at all. No, because you'd overdose and you can
Right.
potentially kill him. So it's diamorphine that's going in. So it's
Oh,
like full on,
strong,
yeah,
strong
yeah,
shit.
strong stuff. So every 15 minutes you bash one of them normally into the side of the thigh if you can get it in there because that's
Hmm.
the quickest way of getting
Yeah,
it
this
through
guy didn't have any legs.
through the artery. But obviously they went into the arm with him
yeah,
because
Hmm.
he had no legs. So that's the right thing to do. And what I found really interesting was even though he was conscious, he was like, look, I've got my medical pouch here. I want more morphine. You need to put it in my arm. He was telling him what to do. And that happens as well because the guy generally in a troop like that, and I'm in special forces or in any forces relationship, the guy who's normally the sniper is also the medic, nine
Right.
times out of 10. So he would be a trained medic as
Because
well
he
in
was
that
still in the
that
movie.
scope.
There's a point where he's telling us the guy, the young lad that's frozen by the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah,
You can tell it's his first ever like deployment kind of. And the guy
yeah,
that's got no legs, and obviously this is real life, so this happened. This isn't like us. This isn't Hollywood. He's still telling the guy that's injecting him and trying to calm him down. He's telling him, look, the guy's frozen at the bottom of the stairs. He needs to be here or he needs to be moved. And then the guy that was in charge, he froze completely in this
yeah.
movie, and he was like, I can't do this. Is that as again? Is that? And I'm not
Yeah,
doing this to be ignorant. I generally don't know. Is that something that happens out in that kind of
yeah,
situation?
absolutely. When you're getting mortared or bombed or shot at, you shit yourself. I've only done
Yeah.
it once. Got out of the back of a vehicle in Iraq, and then suddenly it's like, right, aim at that window, and I'm like,
Wow.
okay. I do teeth for a living.
Yeah, I'm here
What?
for the medic.
What?
Yeah, I'm a
What
medic.
do you
Yeah.
what do you want me to do? And it's like, no, that's what we're doing. It's like, okay. So weirdly, it's funny in a story in the time that the way that you see them when they're doing the surround drills, you've always and you hear them say last man. That's absolutely bang on. That is exactly how it should be. You would always do that when clearing a room or when getting in and out of a vehicle. So the way that they took up positions, you always have one on the far right, one on the left, and then you have one making cover on the outside of the vehicle, you would always do that, and you always go clockwise in. So you'd go left one goes in first, then the middle one goes in, then the right guy comes round, and then the flap comes up, and that's how you get in. And it was bang on, exactly as it should be. And I thought, wow, okay, they've really gone into. It's clear that they've used the actual people
People.
because otherwise little things like this you wouldn't pick up on.
Is there
And
nothing more frustrating though, Scott, as well? You and again, just genuinely in question now. This kind of movie is great and they've got it spot on, and we're going to get
Mhm.
into a little bit more of it. When they do these kind of movies and they get it really wrong, as someone
Yeah,
that's represented our country and you're in the RAF, how much does that piss you off when
yeah.
everyone like Band of Brothers is up there? It's one
Oh,
of the
by
best TV
miles.
shows. But when
Yeah.
they do, it's probably one of my favorite genres, war films. I love like Second World War stuff like
Hmm.
that. I remember my granddad telling me like, watch this one, but don't watch that because he said that's just crap and it's Hollywood. As someone that's been there, done it, literally had your boots on the ground, when you see them doing it right and you get a reaction like we're doing now, what's the flip side, Scotty, when you see a quote unquote war movie and you're thinking you're taking the piss here?
Yeah, it can be frustrating. And to any veteran, you look at it and go, that just doesn't sit right or look right at all in any way. And it's mainly stupid little things like uniform changes, or you watching it and you're like, hang on a minute, you're trying to portray a Brit here, but they haven't got the gear on. Now, 9 times out of 10, British Special Forces wear American gear anyway.
Hmm.
Because you got to blame someone, that's kind of how it. No, I know it sounds stupid,
It's
but
gonna get
they would do that. But it's things like the patches were put on the right place. They call them tactical recognition flashes. So TRFs, you'd know where. All right, that's who you're part of. That's who your section is. You could see all that, even down to things like on this film. I was so impressed with even things like the comms. Spent a lot of time talking through. You could listen and hear him
the bit
talking
at the
about
end of the movie when they're
the
demonstrating it. They're
communications.
talking about that, aren't they? You know, the bit at the end
Yeah.
when they're showing you meeting the actual soldiers. They're basically saying the director of the movie, Alex Garland, he's saying to these guys, right, what would they teach us? And I think they all went on like not courses, but they were all taught. The actors were like, right, this is what we'd say, this is how we'd say it. So it was as true to life as you're gonna get.
And I think the ringing and the tinnitus of being like, oh shit, I've been bombed. I don't know what's actually happening. My head's all over the place. Even the officer, the main officer's like, right, there's too many sirs there in that bit. That wouldn't happen. It
Okay.
would more likely be boss, or you'd call them by the first name because you're a close knit group like that. If there's
Hmm.
5, 6, 7 of you in a team, that you don't show rank. That's not something that does. You respect it and they know who the boss is,
But you
but
don't
you
show it.
don't make on who it is because that's a way of getting found out. So you don't everybody's the same rank, if
Ah,
that
yeah, I'm
makes
with you now.
sense.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm with you.
So there's no difference in what you would do. So there's too many sirs in that thing. Maybe that's an American thing because I've not worked too much with the Americans, but maybe they do that. But
They always turn
especially
up
in
late
the
for these wars, Scotty. You know what
Hey, especially in the British side, they don't that wouldn't happen. Everyone's as equal. So you'd probably be boss or you'd get a first name, and that would be how it goes. But even to the point where he's like, oh, they rung my bell, that is true to life, bang on. And then forgetting to plug in the comms when he's trying to
yeah.
Kazivac a radio through. That constantly would happen all the time, or getting denied permission.
Yeah,
That would
there's a
happen
part in the
too.
movie, Scotty, right? And John, do you remember this from the movie? There's a part in the movie when they want to get evacuated and they come across the comms and they say, we can't do it. And then the boss has to
Mhm.
lie. He's like, get on the radio and he says, mate, they had to make out that they needed that they were clear to come in. They weren't clearly
Yeah.
cleared to come in. Is that something that happens in the military? Because in the movie it comes across as like, holy fuck, he's just literally asked this guy to go and lie to as high a rank as you can get, just so he can get his men out. Is that true to what you know?
In in most respects, no, that doesn't
Okay.
happen because they would say no, the threat is too high for whatever reason. But yeah, it can happen absolutely. The show of force was great.
Hmm.
I thought that was bang on. Again, showing the show of force, even to the point where it was really low level flying, and they're coming out, and it's like, right, we've got to get out as this show of force happens because you putting up a cloud of dust, then you can move. I expected that to be a little bit more around, right, we move when this comes in, and that would happen. Popping smoke, things like that to try and give yourself a bit of a cloud, that would happen too. But in reality and in realistic terms, they'd have just bombed the shit out of most of the houses around there and
Really?
left their house. Oh yeah, if you were in that situation now, that probably wouldn't have happened. I'm pretty certain it's true to life. It did happen, but right now they'd decimate everything around it,
Flatten it.
just flatten it,
Yeah.
and then they'd say, right, that house that we're in now, we'll keep that going because we know it's there. But if you've got insurgents on every house in and around you, the
You're
only
taking
way
them
to
out.
realistically get rid of it is to just flatten everything, and that's probably what they do now.
How true to form was it with the Iraqi insurgents that were part of that group? They were working with the lads.
Yeah,
And is that again, and again, I'm generally don't know, so I'm generally asking, is that something that goes
yeah,
on when you're out there? Because they
yeah,
had in the
absolutely.
movie, it come across, they had the two Iraqi lads. Obviously, they went into the house, there was an Iraqi family in there. They were like, basically, get the fuck out. What are you doing in my house? Blah, blah, blah. And they were like, we're taking this house. We want it. This is where we need for our surveillance. You go and sit in that fucking room and you're staying there for the whole film, basically. And then you had the two Iraqi lads, the Iraqi insurgents, working with the American guys at the English. They were with them. Is that again something that happens
Yeah,
on the front line?
some of the
Is recruit probably the wrong word? They had
No,
two.
so the way it worked is, I think halfway through Iraq. I mean, this is set in 2007, so I know
Mhm.
that what was happening. They were training the Iraqi army at the
Right.
time. So post Saddam Hussein, and they're trying to train the new Iraqi army to take over the duties of what Americans and British and Canadians and Danish and everyone else, multinational forces, were doing at the time on ground moves. Same for the ANA, the Afghan National Army. It was exactly the same for them. So you train these people and say, right, we want you to do that. Now, the amount of times people would come into where I was based in the medical center and it'd be, right, this is John. Okay, well, John looks like Mohammed, but every single person was called John. And it was
John
like,
does look like
okay, yeah,
Mohammed. All right,
yeah,
John.
okay.
Great.
So it was just that was their generic name, if you like, and you just track them as you would do as normal. So I know that the US Special Forces at the time were training Iraqi special forces, if you like. So these two lads that you depicted in the film would no doubt about it being attached to that unit and be embedded in as part of them, as part of that team. And yeah, it does happen. They just take them out on a jaunt. It also helps for the language skills as well because you've got an interpreter there. So
Translating,
that's
yeah.
that's 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 helpful straight away. So yeah, you would normally have either a Terp of some description who would be able to speak Pashto or Iraqi or whatever it is, Arabic that they're talking there, and then be able to translate what you needed to translate as well as being a soldier. So they're a good standard. They were a very good standard of soldier because they're trained by everybody else. And I think in the process that I was there in '07, I think they're training like 100,000 people. So a
Yeah.
lot of it went on. Yeah, a lot of it went on at that like back then. So
Wow.
that was very true to life.
John, why did you said at the start, John, when I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
when we started recording, just before we started recording, you were a bit shocked that this movie hasn't made as much money as you thought it would make. I
Yeah.
said as of the 4th of May 2025, the movie had grossed 29 million worldwide and only had a budget of 20 million. So why do you think that is? Is it a case of, and again, Scott can chime in on this as well, there's so many war movies out there that a lot of people might just think, oh, it's another war movie, but this for me, this is probably in my top three war movies of all time, and even more now that I've heard. I knew what Scott was kind of. I know Scott's background, so but I reckon for our listeners to hear it, for him to say that this is as true and as close as you can get, John, for me, maybe puts it up to one of my favorite war movies of all time. Why do you think, John, that it hasn't done as well worldwide?
Well, two things really. Case subject's quite sensitive, and any film you release is probably down to marketing. Just them two things. I don't think. I don't know.
There
Oh,
wasn't
it's
a lot
just.
of marketing for this, was it? It was the odd, I
I
saw the
didn't
odd
really.
trailer at the
I just saw
cinema.
the odd trailer on the cinema, and that
Yeah,
was it.
same.
Then
I didn't
when I
no
wanted to go
TV
and see
spots or
it,
anything.
no, I didn't see anything. No
Yeah.
post. I don't know why. It's odd.
Is there a reason for that, Scotty? Do you reckon?
Do you think it's because of the actors, maybe? That there's no like mainstream major actor that kind of played in there? I mean, there are good actors in there, don't get me wrong, but there wasn't anyone that jumped off the screen that I was like, oh yeah, I remember him from this. or remember him from that. That maybe that's a point, but also it's the climate and the context of where we are in the world at the minute. You know, we've actually got wars going on, so maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea at the minute to go and sit down and watch a war movie, especially about something that wasn't actually that long ago. You can expect things like you say, Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. Them sort of films are right up there, but you're going back to World War II. You're going back years and years. Whereas with this, it's probably a little bit too sensitive and still in the mind of a lot of people.
I mean, if just going through IMDb while we're chatting, lads, it says like there's a few things, Scott, and you'll probably know to this, and obviously you're in a different situation now. You've kind of moved on from the military, but it says the names of the real SEAL team members were changed in the film to protect their identities, as some are still serving in the
Yes,
military.
that's why they were blurred at the end.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I was
I
going to
did. I was.
ask.
That's literally what I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
At the we'll call them end credits. That this was more than end credits. This really gave an insight as to how the movie was made. I was going to ask you, Scotty, and you pretty much just answered it. There was at the end credits, there was a few that were blurred out, and
Mhm.
I straight away think, I bet they're still in the military.
They are still serving, yeah. That is
Yeah.
exactly the reason why. Or they're on a highly sensitive task in doing something different, maybe for a government agency over in the States, and that's why they don't want to be seen. Or they could be a contractor for a government agency, and that's why they don't get seen.
Oh, that's a good
So
question, Scott, if that's all right.
yeah, go ahead,
When
John.
you was
Yeah.
out there and you was doing what you was doing, did you ever feel threatened by people who you're talking to that you was suspicious of, that you like gave a fake name or anything like that, or
No, to be fair, it's
If you
a
were
bit,
called
bit
Hartley, you'd give a fake name and all.
yeah, no, yeah. Bit different for me. Is I didn't do many road moves. I only did three in 5 months. So looking back at it, it's like, right, I'm on the road. I did a couple of helicopter journeys, which are probably a little bit more dangerous, but you're in and out of the middle of the city of Basra, a place called Basra Palace, and it was really complex. The complex itself was really concreted. So we used to get mortared all the time in there without any fear of anything
I
happening to
remember
you
you
at
telling
all.
me stories of you just sitting there having a brew, and you're like, "Oh, we've been mortared." What?
Yeah, I've got some YouTube videos of it that are up on YouTube. I can link them up. But when we were at the
Yeah, link
pat
them in
when
the
we were
comments if you can. If
yeah,
it won't get
I
you in
will
any
do. Yeah,
trouble, link them in the
well,
comments
not
this
not at
episode.
all. When we were at the airport though, all they used to look for was insurgents would be sitting in what we called the Shia Flats, which is a little bit further away, so probably about 5 or 6 miles away from the airport. All they'd be aiming for was the airport tower, in the hope that if they hit anything in amongst the airport tower, it would come down. And yeah, you were fearful of getting rocketed all the time. I mean, we had 378 rockets in 3 months. So a lot went off. You're very, very close at times. You can hear the whiz on the back of them. So when the first one goes over the top of you and you hear it whiz, that's when you kind of think, oh, this isn't
Yeah, this ain't
ideal.
training anymore. Yeah,
Yeah, this
we're here
isn't this
now.
isn't this isn't good. But never had to change my name. Never had to
no?
think about that. No, locally employed civilians, you had to be a bit mindful of what they were doing. So we had people, washing showers, cleaning up, even chefs who were cooking for you. But I think the problem you did have was when the local warlords would find out they're working for the military, they didn't always come back. So we had a carpenter that was doing a bit of a build for us, and then went home on a Friday and didn't come in. Well, where is he? All right, okay.
Yeah, he's
And
now
it's right.
under
Well,
them
we need to.
floorboards that he
Yeah, it
was
was that
making.
we need to now find a new carpenter.
Oh
Okay.
shit.
So yeah, it does.
When you
And
when something like this movie comes out, Scott, and obviously this movie was based on a surveillance
yeah.
recon mission, basically. They were just surveilling, but obviously they got found out pretty quickly that they were
Mhm.
in. How true is that? Is that something that happens? Because obviously there's a lot of these things you hear a lot of, like when you watch like a CIA movie or and I get it
Yeah.
again, it's a movie, but there's people walking around our world right now and our earth that well, that we don't know that are spies and that CIA. They don't get found. So
Yeah.
when you're in this war situation and they had gone on that surveillance mission, which is what they had gone on, but then they get discovered pretty quickly and it goes south. Is that something that is quite common? Because you said when you were out there, you heard about it straight away.
Oh yeah.
Were you like, fuck, these boys have been made, that they're in this house surveilling? Does that come across as a shock? Because in the movie, if it had all gone tickety boo, it would have been a shit movie. But you know, all joking aside, in real life, you hope that they can just go in, do their surveillance, report back, and then done.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, the job for them doing a recon mission like that, absolutely, it does happen. You can get seen.
Because the
What
famous
we,
line
what,
in the movie is like, is this guy peeping? And he's like,
yeah,
he's gone more than peeping. He's been, peeping with intent.
yes, that's it. So when you say it's called positive ID, PID, you've got to positively identify someone. Have they got a a PKM, which is a Kalashnikov rifle, Russian made? Have they got any weapons? Can you see them putting anything in and out of the car? So when that sort of part is bang on when he couldn't get the shot off.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's like, right, as soon as you know that they've got something, you can then engage. The rules of engagement slightly change. But yeah, you can get seen all the time. What you don't understand, and you probably don't know from the movie, is where they're looking and people are peeping from. It looks like there's a local market almost going on in and
Hmm.
around them. How many people would have known who that person, who's that house they've gone into? Like, where's Andy today? Why
Yeah,
isn't he at the
yeah,
market?
yeah.
And then suddenly it's, oh, well, I haven't seen his wife either or the kids. All right, okay, so what's going on? And then they might get word, and it's called chatter. So ICOM chatter, they'll
Hmm.
talk to each other. They've all got little mobile phones. They'll drive around and look and see what's going on. They might get word that things are happening in the area. So that's why you saw there's always two or three or four houses, safe houses in the middle of towns, cities that they've got that they'll hide up in for a certain amount of time. If you're the elite of the elite, you're not wearing any uniform at all. You are literally blending
Blending
in
in.
with the crowd, and that certainly does happen. But I've never really come across them guys a few times, but not much in my opinion. But these guys who are geared up with rifles and whatever else, and looking for a recon mission, yeah, that can happen. And it was pretty much spot on again with how they did things.
Interesting point about the movie as well, Scott. And again, I'm just reading. I've got IMDb up while we're chatting. The cast did not audition. They were selected from interviews with directors Alex Garland and
Nice.
Ray Mendoza. This was because the directors were looking for the right attitude in each actor. They knew the film would be a tough shoot that required actors to push themselves mentally and physically. So what we were saying earlier, when like it's not like they went and got Ray Winstone or they got whoever to come and do the Liam Neeson because that would have just been stupid. I think if you had got a quote unquote big name, it wouldn't have been as believable. Not because they're bad actors, but because you're thinking it's Liam Neeson from Taken. This is what he does. He just wipe them fuckers out anyway. And I don't mean that horribly. But I think with like John says earlier, and like it's not because it hasn't done well the movie, and it has done well. So probably one of the best movies I've ever seen. When you're having unknown actors and they're sitting down with the guys that have been there, I think they probably would have found it easier than a Liam Neeson, whoever. I'm using Ray Winston as an example. Any actors, anyone out there, these big time actors. I think because they've got these relatively unknowns, I think the movie worked better. Do you guys agree? If you'd had a Liam Neeson in the lead role, you'd have been like, or a John Wick, Keanu, you'd have been like, just John Wick. He's, this is, and I don't mean that horribly, but I think it worked better with actors that we hadn't heard of necessarily. I don't know what you boys think.
John, I'll let you take that one if you want.
Oh, I don't know. I'll use this example. When Saving Private Ryan, they casted Tom Hanks in it, and he was known for his comedy films back in the early 80s, 90s. And so I don't know. I reckon they made the right call. I mean,
Yeah, could you
only
imagine a Liam Neeson in this movie?
No.
Now looking back at it,
I think at the end, when you saw the end credits and you saw the actual people, you could
wow,
humanize
yeah.
almost how
And some of
this
them
actor,
looked a
this
lot like
that's what I'm
them.
saying. This actor looked like this actor. So they've done
Hmm.
it for a reason. You can clearly see, all right, okay, yeah, I understand where they've come from with that. Um, I do get it, but that's probably why John's mentioned it before. That's probably why it hasn't done as well. It's about what marketing they've got from this film and what the budget's been and what they've been able to spend on it. Because as you said, I haven't seen a trailer for this. I haven't seen much going
No,
around
I
about
remember when
it.
I first texted you about it. I was like, Scotty, I'm doing this film review, and you were like, never heard of it. I'll have to watch it. And you're like, and I was like, mate, if one person I want to watch this, it's you, because I knew that's why we waited like 3 weeks to do this review,
Yeah, I know.
because I knew
Appreciate
that I
it.
wanted you on it because I knew you'd literally live through it.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, some weird memories poke up in your head. Then you're like, oh yeah, I think about that. I remember that. Or oh yeah, that street's like that. Or oh yeah, the track marks were correct. Do you know what I mean? It's weird, like how the way that they've clearly got a proper Bradley, and it's like okay, you've got a little armored vehicle carrier coming down, but even the way of the turret turning or the lift at the back, they don't work all the time. And you have to literally pull them up. So you see the very end scene when he gets, or just before the end scene, where he gets stuck in the Bradley and he
Hmm.
says, I'm stuck in the Bradley. Just before he gets stuck in there, you see him, he kicks the lid back up. And that's certain things like that. Yeah, we had to do that. We had to kick a warrior's, like we have call him a warrior, an armored personnel carrier. It's very similar to a Bradley, small gun, small turret,
Hmm.
and the back end would never come up. So as you come up, you had to kick it to make it close properly. Otherwise, the door wouldn't shut. And just stupid little things like that. It's
Wow.
like, wow, you've got that absolutely bang on. And maybe these bigger Hollywood blockbuster movies wouldn't necessarily get the little nuances that me watching as a vet, I'm like, yeah, that's bang on that. Or yeah, you can't get a tourniquet round. That sort of thing. Even like I was saying, placement of props, spot on, absolutely superb.
Did this
Yeah.
movie work well, Scotty, because it was in Hollywood-fied? And I mean that
Yeah,
in the
I think
nicest
so.
way. And I'm someone that sits and talks about movies all the time and loves my movies and loves Hollywood and loves the industry. Did this movie work better because they had basically sat all the guys down that had gone there? And when you read everything how they done this movie, and when you see it at the end, they're all in a room, and apparently it was shot over 5 to 6 weeks. But to film this movie and write the script, they literally sat these guys down and went, "Tell us your story." And we are going to get as close to this, even to the words that you like you've mentioned a few times already. The communication was spot on. Where they were
Yeah.
situated was spot on. The tracks, everything was spot on. This wasn't a Hollywood director and producer sitting in a room going, right, let's write a great war movie. This is going to, all that jazz. This was Alex Garland, Ray Mendoza sitting down with the guys that were there that lived it and gone, right, word for word, tell us what happened, and we're going to write a movie about it, but we're going to keep it as true to form as we can.
Yeah, that's why I think it did work. I really do think it did work properly. And yeah, I think having a low budget, having actors that knew what they were doing, sitting down with the real people, that's clearly what they've done and how it's worked properly for this film. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a very
Yeah,
good
all the
film.
actors got tattoos, the same tattoo to do with the war. But
Oh,
when they're
nice.
done, yeah, he said they felt such a bond over this movie, and if you go on IMDb and read about it and you read what the actors have actually said about it, they said this is probably one of the movies where they bonded the most because it felt as true to life as it can be. Yeah, it was incredible. As always, we give a movie a rating out of 10. We're not doing five anymore because Neil will kill me. Jonathan Noakes, rating out of 10 for the movie Warfare, my friend.
Um,
10. Yeah. Scotty?
really?
Yeah, I give it a nine, solid nine. Mate, I wouldn't give it a 10 because I do like a little bit of suspense and a little bit more background into how they got there. But to go straight into it, boom, yeah, it was good. I'd give it a nine.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 9.5. Only because Scotty told me there's a few flaws in there, and I'm just, listening to what my mate who was there and so
I kind of
tells
picked
me.
up one flaw in the film.
Mm,
'Cause when Scott, you was
No, you're right.
talking about you have to train up the locals and everything. Do you
Hmm.
think them two Iraqi guys in that film were thinking in their heads? I know it's a film, and obviously they were told what to do and blah blah blah. Do you think if that was like real as it got as what you went through, like they would like perhaps double cross and tell the opposite side, look, the lads are in here.
You don't know, and that's the trust that you've got to put in these people. You expect them to do their job and do what they're trained to do, but at the same time, these are just guys who have been brought in off the street. Mainly conscripts or people who volunteered and want to come forward, and then they're like, "Yeah, we'll train you," and then they think to themselves, "Oh, great, it's great being in here. I'm getting a wage because." Iraq's not at the time wasn't a very prosperous country. It was prosperous in oil, absolutely, but it'd been under a dictator for so long that you then think to yourself,
Yeah,
well, okay, what am I going to do to feed my family and to get an actual wage? Like, you do what you do for work. We all do it. We all go to work because we want to pay the bills. We want to better ourselves. We want to make sure that our family are set for
yeah,
life, and that's probably what they're doing. Could they be double crossed? Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many. In the Afghan army, it was a lot worse than it was in Iraq. That's a certainty. So many ANA soldiers that you look at, they are actual Taliban and you don't realize. And then, sometimes things happen, but
Scott,
not a
this is going to
lot.
sound like a stupid question,
Mhm.
and tell me if it is. I did wonder this during the movie. And it was set in 2007, right?
Yeah, yeah, 2007. Yeah,
The
May 7,
Iraqi
May oh 07 that
family,
was.
the Iraqi family that were locked in the room upstairs,
Hmm.
surely one of them must have had a mobile phone.
Possibly.
Was that,
Possibly.
and I'm not pretty ignorant here. It was that, it was
No, they
2000,
were.
it was 2007. So I'm thinking, why don't one of them just send a quick text saying, "Oi, the lads are here."
They might have. I took a phone to
Yeah.
Iraq with me, but I didn't have a signal, obviously. But and then realised you can't really take a phone with me. That was my first operational tour, and it was like, okay, it'll just sit
Scott's
in.
trying to update
It'll
his
just
Facebook while he's sitting on a plane.
it'll just sit in. It'll just sit in a bag. Okay, right, fine.
But
So
yeah, I
that
did wonder that why
quickly got
the
thrown out.
Iraqis that were held hostage in their own home, they didn't ring anyone, they didn't text, they
You got
didn't say,
you
"Look,
get you get Vodafone out there. No lie.
yeah,
It's a Vodafone signal, so they will have phones, old small Nokia phones. Yeah,
hmm
absolutely, they'll be out there. But yeah, I mean, maybe, possibly, they weren't massively prevalent. They
I
were
guess when you've got a
expensive. They
bunch of
were
Navy SEALs in
expensive.
your house, the last thing you're thinking about is sending a text. I guess you're probably looking to protect your family. But that was just, and again, I don't mean it to take the piss. I'm just thinking if they wanted
No,
to save their family, send a text to a fellow Iraqi who's like, "Hello, the Navy SEALs are here. Come and get these
I
bastards."
think the reason they got found out was, as I said before, it's the where's Andy? Why isn't he at the market? Where's his
Yeah.
wife? Where's his kids? Because what you've got to remember is when you're doing a profile of someone, like the guy who's the sniper,
hmm
they will look at that guy and say to themselves, "There's," and they give him names. There's Bob. Right, Bob's married to Sheila. Okay, what's Sheila doing? Oh, she's putting the washing out. Right, okay, and then they'll move off. And it was just, and then they'll give them names, and then 2 days later, Sniper's got to kill Bob, unfortunately, because that's that's the job, or it might not be the
hmm
job. It might just be I'm looking at what is actually going on. You're always painting a picture of the battlefield, and you're always sending that information back to the headquarters, so that when you saw like the drone shots, etc., they
hmm
can place exactly where the buildings are. Because even like building numbers, like, oh, we're in building 4.
Yeah, they
Okay,
mention that a
right.
lot, don't they, in the
So
movie?
they've got it marked out and mapped out. So you had routes. So that route going into Ramadi is on the purple route, as it's known. And this is all legit. I can tell anyone whatever.
hmm
So you had all lots of routes. So when they took Iraq and we invaded Iraq in 2003, they split the routes into different colors. It's almost like the London Tube map. That was exactly what they tried
Oh
to
God, I hope it
do
ain't
it
that
for.
bad.
No, but it was like, right, that's purple. Okay, that one's orange. Right, okay. So you knew the route of to where people were going.
Gotcha.
And that's how it worked. So that was as true as form could be. And even getting off the rifle and going, right, I need a break. I need to get off the site. And then he had a number one and a number two, which is bang on exactly what
What was
they've
the
got.
gum they kept eating? Was that to stop them sweating?
No, the gum they're eating was actually tobacco. So they've got like
Right.
they're just getting a fix of
Well,
nicotine.
I
So
wasn't
that's
sure
like
if it's to do with sweat or
like what baseball players would
yeah.
have. It's the same sort of
Gotcha.
that chewing stuff. So they would put that in the side of their cheeks, and so they don't have to get off the site for a smoke. And then they'd
Okay.
have then they'd have a wee, and then they'd be like, right, I need to crack my back, I need to get myself back in place, and then the other one would take over, and they do it in a lot of stints like that when you're a sniper. It's really hard, even to the point where you put a Tupperware box under someone's bum, and that's what I mean, and let
Say
him
no
go
more.
number two. You let him go
Yeah.
number two, wipe him up, and then move on. And
Wipe
you
him
don't want to
up.
leave anything on a battlefield or anywhere around. So even to the point that where have we left gear? Is there anything out there? And
There
then they're
was a
running
big
back
point of that, weren't
outside.
there? Yeah, and they
That exactly right. That is exactly how it should be, because you do not want to leave any sort of material to say that you were
you were
physically
there.
there, because it's a deniability. Then you see, we weren't actually there,
Yeah, you can't.
and yeah, nobody knows we were there. I mean, yeah, someone's legs are hanging off in the middle of the street. Yeah, you're gonna know you're there, but from a point of gear, yeah, absolutely, you'd bring that all back in. That is absolutely spot on, and it's the little minutiae details that they put in this film that really made it for me. That was exactly why.
Yeah.
Hey Scott, sorry to bother you again, but
No, you're all right, mate. John, go ahead.
you ever thought about writing a book?
Oh my God.
Right.
No, I haven't. But
All of our mates are now, if Jesse, Scouse, they're all watching this going, please no, 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 no,
Please don't write a book. No, I would. I would. Yeah, put some stuff down in writing. Absolutely.
All
But
joking aside, Scotty, you should, I think. All
maybe
joking
who
aside,
knows?
it'd take a
Maybe do an
fucking.
author. Maybe
Honestly,
be an
mate, it'd be
author.
an insight to. I think there's so many, and again, it's one of my favorite genres of movies, war movies and stuff like that. I think it's through my granddad, like telling me he served in the Second World War for the RAF. He flew the
Nice.
Spitfire, and he told me so many stories, I've just got the love of it. So, and I've read many books. So, and I think someone like you could atone to this movie and not piggyback off the back of the movie, be like, yeah, I was there. I can tell you our side of it. Like we heard about this, but
Yeah.
this is what we were doing at that time. I mean, when we were out in Washington, and I know we take the piss, but some of the stories you told me, you're like, this is real life. This happens. This is like, and I
Mm.
get that, and I understand why the military get a lot of praise, and it's fully deserved. But when you physically sit down and chat to someone, we're very lucky. I know you. We know a lot of our friends that have served in the American military. They tell us stories from their side of it. And when you sit just in a bar, like we do most Fridays and Saturday nights, or when we go to DC every September, or when we all meet up for our meetups with our friends in the States, and you sit there and you think, fucking hell, this is someone's life. This is going on. So when I often think back to that when I might be having a bad day at work, or I'm thinking I'm not in Iraq. I'm not, I'm throwing beer barrels around London. I'm getting stuck in traffic, etc., etc.
We've got it easy, Andy.
We have, mate. And when you see a movie
Yeah.
like this, you're thinking this is a Hollywood film based on facts, based on
Yeah,
some.
I've never been in a situation like that, but yeah, that's heart-wrenching to be anywhere
Yeah.
near
And when
that
you like
sort of
John
thing.
says, he
But
was the bit, he's making it. I was
I've
emotional.
never been so
Yeah.
glued to the screen in all my life, and I'm being honest.
yeah,
Yeah.
I come out of that thinking, oh, I watched Thunderbolts last week. This pisses over that. I watched Minecraft last week. This pisses over that. And every film I've watched up until this point, this film pisses over all of them.
It's been my
yeah,
favorite movie so far this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Easy. And I've got to be on, I spend most of my life at the cinema nowadays,
Well,
three, four
looking
times a
further
week.
ahead, what's coming out? I don't think there's anything else that's going to be remotely
No,
close
this
to
will win
what
awards.
we've
If
watched.
this does not win some sort of awards, it won't win an Oscar because it's actually not Hollywood enough for the Oscars are a joke now. It should win many, many awards. And yeah, I
I
thought it
hope
was a
so.
honestly, anyone watching this, listening to this, go and see the movie Warfare. It's going to be out on Sky relatively soon, or it's going to be on a platform where you can watch it. I think it's still in the cinema. So if you get a chance, I want to go again and watch it in IMAX. I recommend it in IMAX. It's going to be on whatever platform, Netflix, Sky. It's going to be somewhere. The second this movie drops, I recommend everyone go and watch it and come and listen to this. But honestly, it literally blows your mind the fact that these guys, and again we mentioned spoilers, they all lived, and at the end of the movie you see them meeting the cast, meeting the directors, and you're like, wow. And you can physically see them asking the questions of the people that were there. You can see the actors getting advice, right? Where should I be at this point? What should I be doing?
Yeah,
And the guys that were there are going, right, this is what happened, this is where I was. And for them to portray, I wonder what the lads thought when they finally watched this movie of their
yeah,
story.
that's the bit that got me was what were they like when there? And then when you seen the two that were very seriously wounded, you're
Mm,
like, oh, they survived. Okay. That then gets my head going, Jesus, these medics have worked their arse off. The doctors
hmm.
have, you know what I mean? They've done what they've needed to do at the other end. Now to get a Bradley out of the middle of Ramadi into probably the nearest, not safe house, but to the nearest hospital, which would be Bagram, you're probably looking at even in a Bradley, that's a good, I would say, 10 mile.
Shit.
Now, that Bradley is probably going no faster than 15 mile an hour at the very, very most. Especially because the roads themselves will be either laden with IEDs or there'll be some sort of sweeper that would have to come out. So they'll have got them to a place of safety and then most likely Medivac helicopter them out in a Black Hawk and then off to the hospital. But you've got a window of time there. You know, we're talking. You hear about when heart attack. Oh yeah, you've got to get them. You know, get them going within 10 minutes on a defib, and then it's all got to be done within half an hour to get them to the hospital. It's a similar for this. So any sort of major trauma bleed injury, we call that a Cat 1 risk. So you'll get a trauma team call saying, right, the trauma team's on standby. So the minute we know that happens over the net, as you heard from HQ, they will then tell you, right, trauma team's in. As soon as trauma team 1 is called, it's normally someone's been shot or someone's been injured in some way, shape, or form. If trauma team 2 gets called, that's when the shit's hit the fan. And it's like, right, okay, we're either going to have a mass casualty situation here or something's going to go on. Now, I was trauma team 2. That was my job. So I was part of that trauma team. So as soon as my mate's got his boots on and he's in trauma team 1 as an anaesthetist, I'm like, right, okay, I'll get my boots on just in case. So get my boots on ready to go just in case. And then when the call comes over, yeah, you're ready to go, trauma team 2, it's all systems go. So from my point of view, I'm thinking, God, these guys have worked their arse off to get them to a state where they both survived, which is unbelievable, really, especially when so many people did die. I mean, we lost, what was it, 410, I think, is the count for the Brits from the Iraq War. And I think it was something like 10,500 American troops over that time. So it's a lot, you know what I mean? It's a lot of lives lost. So to get these two out, especially being as elite as they are, an elite trained and an elite special forces unit, yeah, fair play. You know what I mean? Fair play to them.
Scotty, thanks so much, mate, I know some of this stuff.
It's
I mean,
right.
obviously, I've known you a very long time now. Some of it's never easy to talk about. But for you to sit down and literally give us an account of a movie that you were there when it happened is extra special. We review movies all the time and they are movies. This was a movie, but it was based on real life. So when we sit down and review movies, yeah, we're critical. We done Thunderbolts yesterday. It's a Marvel movie, it's not based, it's based on our opinions, it doesn't really affect real life people. Marvel isn't really real. When you do things like this, it really does hit home and you're like, wow, we've just spoke down about a quote unquote movie and we're speaking to a guy that was there and it happened, mate. So yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on and doing this with us, mate.
No worries at all. Anytime you want me, that's fine. But yeah, really love chopping it up with you guys. And I really like this movie. So there you go.
Yeah, mate. Honestly, go and see Warfare if you haven't seen it, or it's still in the cinema for a little bit longer, or if not, as soon as it hits any platform that it's on, go and see it. We've all given it 9s, 10s out of 10. It's incredible. Anyone wants to check out this show, as always, just go onto YouTube, type in Completed It Podcast into the search bar. The little logo will come up that's behind myself and Mr. Hartley there. The audio stuff is also uploaded if you're on Apple, Spotify. Completed It Podcast, just type that in and you can have us in your ears whenever you're doing what you do. But Johnny, as always, mate, thanks for jumping on, mate. I really appreciated the last couple of days, mate, jumping on doing some movie reviews of us. Myself and Sash are going to be back talking Star Wars Underworld later in the week, the new little mini shorts that are on Disney Plus. So we're going to be getting into them. And then we've got more reviews coming out next week. I think we've got a new John Wick movie coming out within the next couple of weeks. John, I might even review Minecraft. It won't take long. This movie was shit at the end, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Our Thunderbolts review is out now. Now that, Scotty, I don't know if you've seen Thunderbolts yet. When you've watched it, come and check our review out because
I will.
Like I said yesterday on the show, I nearly caused a war in our WhatsApp group because I thought it was shit. But let's see what you think. Scotty, once you watch it, let us know. But Scotty, thanks so much, mate. Really do appreciate it. Always good to catch up with you, mate. No doubt I'll speak to you probably in about the next 10 minutes since you've done this. We've got a lot of NFL stuff to catch up on, my friend. But yeah, like I say, go onto Twitter at Completed It Pod. Go onto YouTube, Completed It Podcast. Hit the search, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We'll be back later in the week. Till next time, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe.
Feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of daily life? Struggling with anxiety, stress, depression, phobias, fears, or just trying to get yourself back again? Discover the transformative power of focused solution hypnotherapy and counseling. Through guided hypnotherapy, relaxation trance allows your subconscious mind to access your inner resources and strengths you didn't know you had. Book your free consultation today and let's start your journey together. For more information, please email Sharon at scm-therapy.me